All right, howdy everybody. This is for CSE 310 Lab 1. I'm going to be showing you today how to set up and prove that your web server is working. This is a little bit more complicated because it involves the VNC creation for a graphical user interface to get a web browser up on your VM. So I'm not going to go through the actual web server installation because that is pretty simple and explained well on Canvas, but the VNC setup is a little bit more difficult and I had troubles with it, so I want to show y'all. First thing you want to do is create a firewall rule on your Google Cloud VM. So I'm going to go to firewall up here, and I've already created it, so I'll just show y'all exactly what I did. I called it VNC server. I'll go to edit here. Okay, so I named it VNC server. You can name it really whatever you want, I believe. Everything here can stay the same. Big thing here is specific target tags. You want to change this here, and then your target tag, you want to be VNC-server. Okay, so make sure you add that there. Then you want the IPv4 ranges, and then your range is the 0.0.0.0/0. Okay, so those are very important steps. And then finally, you want to check the specified protocols and ports and change that port to 5901. Okay, so that should all be good to go for me. I'm going to just double check and save that. Now what you're going to do is you're going to go into your Ubuntu VM and install the VNC server software. Since I already have it installed, it won't do anything. But just as an example, oh, looked like it disconnected me. So I'm going to SSH back in to my VM. Okay, so I'm back in, and so you would just do the sudo apt get update first. So it's going to update, and then you're going to do sudo apt, and I don't want to run these because it might take too long. Get install type VNC server. So type VNC server, and these steps are all listed on the Canvas as well. And then you're gonna do, after you run that, you're gonna do gnome core, run those. Okay, so once you've run those and installed those packages, you should be good to go. Now, the next thing you want to do is, sudo vi, this is vim, /etc/vnc.conf. Now, this is going to be a configuration file for the VNC server, and it'll pull up something like this. You want to make sure you do sudo so you can do a read-only, or excuse me, a writable file. Otherwise, it'll just be read-only. Now, you see a bunch of rules. The only thing that you want to do is uncomment this localhost equals no. Originally, it looks like this localhost equals yes, commented out with the example by it. Uncomment this, okay? And then you can do :WQ to save that. So now your configuration file is all set and good to go. You'll now run sudo reboot. And so this is going to reboot your VM. It's going to take a second, and so I'll be back in a second. Okay, so now that we're back, the VM was rebooted. And so if it doesn't work for you immediately after you reboot it, don't worry. It's just going to take a second. And so now that it's rebooted, you should be able to do VNC server. Now you won't have to do anything like multiple times except for this. This is the step to start the server. And so every time you shut down your VM, you want to do this. And so it's going to connect to the server correctly. And a note here, you want to make sure you're on Ubuntu 20.04. If you do anything more recent like 24 or 22, this may not work. It didn't work for me. I had to create a whole new virtual machine. Okay, so now your VNC server is up and running. Now you're going to connect to this in real VNC. On Canvas, there's a link to the download for this. You're going to go up to File, New Connection, but I'll just show you the connection that I made. You're going to make the IP address of your external IP for your VM. And so that's found, I'll just double check that y'all, make sure y'all are doing the right one. VM instances here. I'm copying this external IP right here, okay? So this 35.209, you'll see in my real VM that that's 35.209, right? And then I'm gonna put a colon and the port number 5901, name it whatever, everything else you can leave the same. So when I start this guy up, It's going to ask me for a password that I created. Whenever you're creating your VNC server, it'll actually ask you for a password. And so that's nothing to be worried about. And then it's going to give me this authentication required thing. I still am struggling with this a little bit. I have a password that I thought I set for it, but it wasn't working a little bit earlier. Um, and so after a little while, it just kind of loads up for me for some reason. Um, I'm not exactly sure what this is about, but to get there, activities, and see it worked without doing the password this time. So you can kind of just mess around with it. Now to get to a browser, you want to go over to Firefox. I did this like 9x9 here, and then to Firefox. And let me make sure this is being shared with y'all because I don't want to have to re-record this. Okay, it's not being shared. Yeah, let me share this with y'all. Okay, so what I did here is a little thing came up. I went up to activities and it took me to this page. And then I went to this little icon here and then Firefox web browser. Now I'm at localhost 7000, right? So this is how you would be able to see your web server. Now let's see if it works. So I can go back to my Ubuntu VM and let me reshare that screen with you guys. Okay, so I'm back on my Ubuntu VM. And I am going to, if you follow the instructions on Canvas for the web server setup, you should have a web folder in your home directory, which I have not done yet. So I'm going to do that on this VM. I did it on my other VM, and I'll be right back. Alrighty, we're back, and I've created the file firstserver.js as the Canvas tutorial says to do. And so I'm going to run node firstserver.js. And so now it's listening on port 7000. And now if I go back to the VNC, I see Hola Mundo, which is correct and is what should be running on the server. So this is tutorial on how to get the VNC set up and prove that your web server is actually working.